I'm Kimberly Kim. I'm the director of Buddy. We're so glad you're here tonight for the special conversation with Tonika Johnson and Dr. Mira Krysan, co-authors of Don't Go, Stories of Segregation and How to Disrupt It. We're especially excited to host this event because we've had the privilege of working with Tonika and Maria over the past year. Their folded map curriculum for educators has been available for free at Buddy, our artist shop and community space inside the Chicago Cultural Center on the first floor. So come by, we're open 7 days a week, 11 to 5. Let's see, so a bit about our guests. Tonika Johnson is a photographer, multimedia artist, creator of the Folded Map Project, recipient of the 2024 Gordon Parks Foundation Fellowship, and one of Chicago Magazine's 2017 Chicagoans of the Year. Dr. Mira Krysan is a LAS Distinguished Professor of Sociology at the University of Illinois, Chicago, and co-author of multiple award-winning book, Cycle of Segregation. Together, they combine art and research to explore how everyday stories reveal deep impact of segregation and how we can take part in distinguishing it. Don't go. It is available for sale outside. After the talk, we'll open up for audience Q&A, followed by a book signing and reception outside the lobby. Please join me in welcoming Tonika and Maria. Thank you.
It's a reason I'm doing this. It's because this is a participatory book talk, and you all are going to come up a little later. So, hi everyone, how are you? Oh, I'm so happy to have you all here, and I'm just gonna get the clicker because, yep. Oh, no, it's fine. I'm so glad to have you all here, and I just want to do a quick temperature check. Raise your hand if you are familiar with my Folded Map project. You know what, that is just so sweet. You are gonna make me cry. I never expect as many people to know about it, but for those who don't know about it, I'm going to share with you the media coverage about Folded Map so you can just get a quick idea of what the project is, but it is the project that kind of launched me into the public space about segregation, art being used to amplify understanding these issues, and it was an exhibit in 2018, and it had an amazing response. It was an exhibit at Loyola University Museum of Art, and after it opened, it got a lot of media attention, and I'm going to play for you one of those stories now. Oh, my friends back there, can we thank you?
Tonight, a creative approach to bridging divides in Chicago. CBS 2's Adriana Diaz shows us how so-called map twins from the city's north and south sides are teaming up to take on some deeply rooted issues.
Chicago residents Nanette Tucker and Wade Wilson share a love of gardening and craft beer.
That would be kind of cool.
It would be cool.
They're like neighbors, sort of.
Wade is called your map twin. Why are you guys twins? We're twins because when you fold the map, we touch one another on the map, north and south.
Like many cities, Chicago's a grid with many streets spanning north to south. If you fold a map of the city in half, you can match addresses on the north side with the same block on the south side. They live about 15 miles apart, but Wilson and his wife Jennifer live in the majority white north side neighborhood of Edgewater, while Tucker is in the mostly black south side neighborhood of Englewood. They met through Tonika Lewis Johnson, a social justice artist who grew up in Englewood, a community often in the news.
2 mass shootings
shot in the head this afternoon.
Shooting claims the life of a 15-year-old boy in West Englewood.
Lewis Johnson created the Folded Map Project, which includes this film, to change the conversation. She contrasts how the same street, like Ashland Avenue,
They look very different.
looks on the north side
The sidewalks,
and the south side.
the maintenance of the building, none of which have anything to do with gun violence. Only disinvestment.
Chicago's segregation is due in part to racist policies like redlining, where banks would designate properties in minority areas, delineated in red, as too risky for mortgage lending. excluding Black Americans from a primary pathway of building wealth, homeownership.
It can feel so overwhelming to try to take on systemic racism, but you have found a way to almost chip away at it one person at a time, one pair at a time.
Yes. Let's use segregation as the actual thing that can connect us.
In her project, she doesn't shy away from uncomfortable truths.
How much was your home?
It was $61,000.
And how much was your home?
$535,000.
You asked Wade and Nanette what they each paid for their house. You know, it felt a little awkward.
I think the awkwardness helps people understand how we're all participating in this system that was created before us. And it doesn't truly reflect how we want to connect with each other today.
Frankly, we're privileged. And it's hard to sit next to a friend who hasn't enjoyed that privilege. We realize that there's an opportunity to actually do something.
Adriana Diaz, Chicago.
Wilson and Tucker are doing something together. 3 years after they met through the Folded Map Project, they helped create Englewood Renaissance, helping beautify parts of Englewood and now focusing on increasing home ownership.
So now that you know what Folded Map is, I can now tell you about what happened afterwards. So Folded Map debuted as an art exhibit, got a lot of media coverage, and people started to invite me to speak about the project. So I was speaking to different universities, institutions, any entity that wanted to use my project to help talk to either their employees, students, or audiences about this issue in Chicago, but more importantly, how to disrupt it. And so once I started doing presentations about Folded Map, because I do participatory art projects, I wanted to also make sure, much like you all will see today, that my presentations were also participatory. And so I started to ask people this question that I'm gonna ask you, and I'm gonna ask my friends in the back to turn up the lights, because it's important for you all to see this, because this is also part of the art. I started to ask people the question that I'm gonna ask you all right now. Yeah, we're gonna get the house lights up so you all can see each other eagerly. They told me I could talk to them during the whole presentation, so you all are gonna hear a lot of that. I would like for you to raise your hand if you have heard or have been told, don't go to the south side or west side, or that is dangerous. Raise your hand high, high, high. Keep them raised, keep them raised. Now everybody look around. Keep them raised. I ask this question to remind people that this is how redlining is perpetuated today. And so I asked a group of Northwestern freshmen this same question. And this time it affected me a little different. So I'm just gonna share with you a small clip of me having a presentation with them and the response and how I felt after I asked them this question. Because this is a room full of freshmen who were mostly white, new to Chicago, new to a big city, and this actually stunned me. So this is one of the first times I started asking this question. By a show of hands, how many of you all are not from Chicago? All right. By a show of hands, how many of you all have been told to not go to the south side or that it's dangerous? So therein lies one aspect of how segregation is perpetuated. So I'm gonna walk you through how I came to grow up and still live in Englewood. And so we can have a really good conversation about how segregation impacts our social networks. So, now you couldn't tell from the video, but that experience asking those freshmen who, in my mind, are babies, because they were just a few years older than my own kids, and I really was stunned and shocked and kind of hurt to know that these kids who are new to Chicago had no idea about how that advice, that suggestion was rooted in racism. And so it was really at that time that I wanted to do something to elevate this advice for us to be able to talk about what it really means. And so I took this video and I posted it on my social media, and I explained to the people who follow my social media to share their thoughts, what they think about this. This is what I have started to experience often, the reality that every room that I ask that question, it doesn't matter if it's 30 or 600, and yes, I did it at a conference, and there was 600 people, and everybody raises their hands. This is the answer. And for me, as a resident of Inglewood, even though I did a project like Folded Map, it's just something different when you see the exact reason why stores aren't in your neighborhoods, why people don't come to your house, because this is why. And so I wanted people to share what they thought about this. And I put it on social media, and it went a little viral, and it caught the attention of the amazing Pulitzer Prize winning journalist, Mary Schmidt. And she DM'd me and said, "This is wonderful. I've always wanted to talk about this, didn't know how. Can I write an article about it, an op-ed about it?" I said, "I would be honored." What? So she did. And then they posted it, published it. That went viral. And of course, I did something that you should not do, especially if you're a sensitive artist, is I read the comments. I read the comments. And the comments, yeah, some were really positive, but a lot were really racist, saying, well, it's horrible down there, it's violent. It was all of the things that you all would expect, but I don't know, it just bothered me to read it. So what did I do? I shared that on social media. But I wanted to do something to counter the comments and to really provide a space for Chicagoans to share what they thought about this very seemingly innocent comment and advice. And so I, invited people to share with me their don't go stories. And I put an email address, the Folded Map Chicago @gmail. And I invited them to email me their stories. And I said, now, if somebody emails their story, then they really wanted to talk about this. So I posted it on my social media and said, well, if the other ones went viral, then, let's see what it do. Let's see what people say. And of course, me being an active artist, I posted this and forgot about it until Maria reminded me that I had posted this, and she asked, hey, whatever happened with that post? Did you get any responses? And I was like, I haven't checked it. And so I told her, go ahead, you can check it. Here's the password, because I don't have time.
Now I get to talk for just a minute. So a little background on me. For more than 20, almost 30 years, I've spent my career as a sociologist I study racial attitudes and residential segregation, and I have tried to get people to answer surveys, participate in focus groups, do in-depth interviews with me. I have to bribe them, I have to cajole them, I have to beg them, I have to plead with them to do this, because I'm always gonna be talking to them and asking them questions about race. So you can imagine I have people beating down my door to talk to me about, answer surveys about questions about race in America. So they don't. I know you've been asked by people to do this, like me. We're very friendly, and we get lots of no's. So when I got the keys to this inbox, it was like, okay, I guess I've been doing everything wrong. Now here's the playbook if you want to get people to respond, because within a couple of weeks, she had 70 people who reached out with their stories. And then to open them and start to read their stories, some were 2 lines long, some were 5 computer screens long. And I said, yeah, there's something here in these. More than 70 people within a few weeks had shared, thank you. See, I was over here obsessing
I was like,
about
both
your
her hands are
clicking.
occupied. I don't think she can do this.
I can't do all these things at once. Within a few weeks had shared their stories. They were young, older, middle-aged, teachers, social workers, IT specialists, tech workers, artists, piano repairmen, small business owners, white, black, Latinx, immigrant, men, women, but lots of them were white. And I had been working with Tonika trying to figure out how I could be helpful to her. And I finally felt like, aha, she wants to talk to these people. And she knows what we all know and sociologists know also if you take a research methods class, if you're going to talk to people about race in America, it's really best if you have a white interviewer talk to white people and a black interviewer talk to black people. There's evidence that people give different answers based on that context. So I was like, hey, I can finally be useful. I'm white. I could talk to these white people for you. She knew that going in and wanted me to be involved in doing that, so I was feeling really super excited about that. I could finally be useful. So in February of 2020, I put on my sociologist hat and I sketched out a very conventional sociology research project that would involve us talking to these wonderful people who volunteered their stories to Tonika on an email. February of 2020. Yeah, so you know that we didn't actually do that great conventional research project where we would spend time driving all over the city of Chicago, finding these people, talking to them, interviewing them. I'd go off and find the white people. She'd go find the non-white
racial
people.
research nerds.
Racial research nerds, yes. So none of that could happen. April of 2020 comes along. We kind of ignored it for a minute, and then we were both in a funk about the world being turned upside down, and we thought, hey, people are probably at home. So that explanation that people used to give me when I was a survey researcher, I have no time, it's like, yeah, we think you might have some time now. So, and then this idea of maybe we should try Zoom. Everything else is moving on to Zoom. Maybe we could do interviews on Zoom. But there was still that wrinkle about race of interviewer effects that was still rattling around in my head. But I didn't know what she would do in these interviews. I didn't know how she wanted it. I didn't know the vision. So I was like, you know what, maybe we should both try to interview together, which all of the bells are going off in my head. That is the dumbest idea. I'm a research methodologist. That's the dumbest idea you've ever heard of.
And I'm the artist, and I said, no, let's do it.
We're good. We're fine.
Let's just see what the vibes are.
Okay. So we reached out to our first letter writer, a young white man, and I agreed, all right, let's do it together for this first one, and then we can fly solo. But we never ended up flying solo. About 20 minutes into that first interview, we realized we needed to toss out the carefully constructed playbook, not worry about having both of us do the interviews, forget the protocol that I wrote, and yes, we can do this on Zoom, and maybe we should interview that one graduate student in sociology from the University of Chicago who I thought couldn't teach me anything. He's a sociologist, for crying out loud. What could this white guy from sociology tell me about anything? I'm saying all of that to set this up because you know I was shown and shamed once we did talk to him. And we talked to him because in survey research and in this project, this is kind of a universal. Women are more likely to agree to do these things. So our samples, all the surveys you read the results of, I promise you it's a gender imbalance. There's always more women than men. They do weights and do statistical magic to make it work, but women are always more likely. And so we were having that problem, and I was like, all right, fine. We got to get some more men, so we'll do that. We'll talk to him. So, and it turned out that the interplay between the two of us on the interviews was magical. And also, to be totally honest with you, if I had showed up on the Zoom screen as the only person to interview these people, they would have been really disappointed. Because they all knew Tonika. They're like, wait, where's the star? Who are you? I'm like, I'm just, never mind. So that's what it looked like. That's how we spent the early months of the pandemic. Between April and August of 2020, we conducted 29 interviews. And now we want to show you a little clip. Anybody a research nerd in the audience? Anybody a researcher of any kind?
Anybody here is a nerd. Stop it.
Anybody, you can admit it. So I want to, for anyone who wants to turn me into my institutional review board, which is the human subjects ethics board at the university, you say, you can't put their names up here. This is research. It's not research. When we first started this project, I knew the first thing I had to do to feed the bureaucracy was submit a 12-page document that said what I'm about to do is not research. So it's not research. So we can show you the video clips with their permission. I am ethical, however. It's not research, but I'm ethical. None of the individuals whose pictures and names, they're all on board to do this.
Because it's and art projects.
Exactly.
Yeah. And as you can see how personal it got, because I'm in there with a bonnet on, okay? So I think that has a lot to do with helping create the space for honesty. Show up with a bonnet and people get real comfortable.
So this is a clip from one of those interviews. It's a story of a piano repairman. He is a transplant to Chicago from Pittsburgh, having come to Chicago to learn the piano repair trade, but ended up staying. And here's the story that he shared with us.
And friends back there, yeah, see, look.
Miss Jones asked me, she's like, hi, she's like, I want to get piano service. I said, okay. I'm like, where in Chicagoland are you and all that? She's like, I'm in Inglewood. Do you service my area? And I said, well, I'm kind of new to the city still, and, the business is new. I've never been to Inglewood, but, let's get something on the books. And she's like, oh, great. So we set up the appointment. Where I'd moved to, I didn't get my truck until 09. This was like 07 when I got out of school, okay? So it's just me, my 40-pound bag of tools on a Western Avenue bus all the way down to 73rd Street. Western Avenue and 73rd.
73rd Street.
And Western. Just north of the tracks. North of the tracks. And I get off, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm tracing this back to what my roommates and their friends had told me since I had moved here. Don't go west of here, don't go south of there. And I'm tracing this back, and I'm like, okay, this is where they told me not to go. I guess we're going to see how this goes. I wanted to work, baby. I wanted to work. I didn't care where it was really. So I just wanted to work. So I get off the bus, and I'm walking further, west. And as I'm walking on 73rd, because my client lived on like a little side street there. And as I'm walking, I noticed like a few empty lots, whatever, and the homes were just beautiful. They were gorgeous. And I'm like, well, here I am. I'm taking this all in. I'm looking around. And this was an area that I was told that if I was white, it was automatic that I was going to be shot, robbed, and killed within minutes. And all these things were going to happen to me. And there's just drug cartels and violence and all this stuff. And I got to be honest with you, I was kind of disappointed because I didn't see any of that stuff. I didn't see any of it. And I'm thinking, I'm walking, and like there were kids playing in the street. There were elderly folk having coffee or breakfast on the front porch. And so I'm walking to Miss Jones' house. I get in, and she was so nice. She took good care of me. She put out like a plate of cookies and just, I had water, cookies, and she just kept offering. She was so sweet. I remember clear as day. And so I was there for a couple hours. This is the piano that had been neglected for years. It just sat. So I'm wrapping up service, and I remember she got kind of emotional when I was wrapping up, because she said, I want to thank you for all your hard work today. I didn't want to tell you this on the phone, but you were about the 6th or 7th technician I called, because I couldn't get anyone to come over here. And I'm like, my heart kind of stopped a little bit. I'm like, you're kidding. She's like, just people won't come here. They won't, they won't service our area. She goes, and then she followed up with, we're not the only community that suffers from this, just so you know. And I'm like, well, just so you know, you can call me anytime. I have no problem. I'm here. Just you let me know when you need anything. And it's just kind of like, she gave me a hug and everything. I was just like, I'm like, what's going? I'm like, I never had this impact from a client. Like this is because the average person I serve, in Northside, whatever, it's just like, oh yeah, hey, thank you for the service, whatever. And it's just like, all right, take care. This was something special.
So obviously there's more, but you already know. I mean, I was on the Zoom just boo-hooing at that point because, yeah, that story was really, really touching.
And for that reason, we knew that, well, Tonika realized, I don't think like that, I'm not the artist, but she was thinking, this can't be an exhibit in a museum.
Yeah.
You want to finish that part of the story?
After this experience and having the Zoom interviews reveal so much vulnerability, so much honesty, I knew that I did not want it to be in an exhibit space or a gallery alone. And I didn't know what it should be, but I knew that it needed to be just as intimate as those Zoom interviews where people can sit with these stories, have their own emotional reactions to it. I didn't know what that would be. And then, of course, this sociologist over here who has written a book already just suggested, well, it could be a book. I've never written a book. And I said, okay, well, go do it then. Go find us someone who could publish it.
So we did do a little test run. Shout out to the amazing Block Club Chicago.
Pew, 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 Block Club.
Who worked with us to create 5 stories, including Joey's, that we put out in Block Club Chicago in 2021 and got some good feedback there. And then WTTW that same year did a story about Don't Go. So we're going to show you a little clip of that. You want to set up the clip?
Yes, this is our storyteller, Adrienne, sharing what she learned and how she felt after participating in the project.
And Adrienne, do you think your parents and grandparents at the time, do you think they were being protective of you, once you learned you had made that mistake with taking the wrong exit? And what was it that you felt they were probably protecting you from?
I mean, I feel like they were just being overprotective, but they're buying into the larger narrative that they've been told. And it was never really clear what would happen if you got off at the wrong exit or if you were hanging out in the South Side, but I got the impression it was dangerous and something bad would happen. And to just not even take that chance.
And Adrienne, since participating in this project, give us a quick sense of how you sort of participate in changing the narrative.
So since this project, I've gone to the South Side a few times. I've seen for myself that the things that, the don't go to the South Side narrative is not true. And I've been trying to unlearn that behavior. I have a storefront here on the North Side. And for a while I was inviting Black artists to come to my shop and show their work and sell their work so that they could see my neighborhood, but also so my neighbors could meet them and start to maybe form some relationships between North and South Side and break up the segregation and the narrative that has been so prominent in the city.
So, as she said, Maria's written a book. So I've written a book. It's a 350-page academically oriented, though still accessible to read book. So I was happy that she had all this confidence in me, but in the back in my head I was going, I don't know how to write a book that a Pulitzer Prize winning Chicago Tribune columnist named Mary Schmeek would write a foreword for. So that was a different terrain for me, but I dove in. I'd been doing a lot of things I'd never done before, so that's what made this experience so exciting for me. So Mary Schmeek did write the foreword to the book, given her role, as you saw, in the kind of origin story of the project. We thought that was amazing. What I'd like to do is kick us off to the participatory part of this to get you warmed up to know that you're going to be doing something like what I'm doing right now. We're going to ask for 6 of you to do this. So
at least 3. All right. So while she's reading, 3 of you all can figure out
we can get 6.
Who has the courage.
I bet there's 6 of you all in the audience who'd be willing to do this. So I'm going to read an excerpt from her foreword, which shares her own Don't Go story. She writes, "The day I stumbled on Tonika's Don't Go Facebook post, I instantly recalled my arrival in Chicago to write for the Chicago Tribune. It was 1985. I'd spent my life in Georgia, Arizona, California, Florida, and France, and I felt like a foreigner in this vast northern metropolis. I knew little about the city's racial history or geography. But I soon learned, meaning I was told, that there were streets I shouldn't cross, neighborhoods I shouldn't enter. A few months into my new job, I heard about a woman who was running a theater program for residents of her West Side neighborhood of Lawndale. When I proposed a story on her and her program, an older colleague, a longtime Chicagoan, shook his head. "It's dangerous," he said. "Don't go there." I went anyway. The cab driver I hailed outside Tribune Tower downtown grumbled when I gave him the address. But he took me, warning that I'd have to call for a taxi home since cabs were hard to find in Lawndale. When the interview was over, I called. I waited for the cab for 2 hours. Getting a ride home, as it turned out, was the only trouble I encountered. This book will help many people see Chicago more fully. And while solving the don't go problem isn't as simple as telling people go, Tonika's and Maria's work helps us confront the myths and mindsets that make it harder for Chicago's very real problems to be solved. Don't Go sends a message. Let yourself listen, let yourself learn, let yourself think about how you learned what you think you know, and then go somewhere that broadens your view of our city, your fellow citizens, and maybe yourself. So that is the excerpt, and I want to do the last line of Jerry's story while we have 6 of you identify yourselves by standing up and coming down to the front of the room.
Yes, so who are the 6?
We're going to ask you to read short
come
excerpts.
on
All right,
down.
we've broken. Come on, keep coming. That's 1 down. Thank you, thank you. I want to tell you while people are committing to this, I want to tell you the way that Joey's story ended, right? He had just finished his piano service. Of course, he's got to ride the bus back home, right? Up the Western Avenue bus. So after sharing a hug with Mrs. Jones, I waited with a small group of people on the bus stop on 73rd Street. 2 white police officers pulled up and said, "Excuse me, if you want, we can get you out of here. You're heading to the north side, right? We can take you there. We can get you out of here."
So there we go, Tiana. We would like for you all to say your name and then tell us where you're from, and then you can read the excerpt.
Hey, my name is Say. I'm from Mississippi, but I've lived in Chicago for about 4 years now, up in Edgewater, so north side. And this is Tiana's story. I was born and raised in Englewood. I had my choice of colleges that accepted me, but my Uncle Elliot always told me IIT was the place to go for engineering. Growing up, I never saw anyone that looked like me at IIT when I walked around it. So I vowed to maybe be the one person that somebody might see and say, I see someone there who is just like me, I can go to IIT too. On my first day as a student there in 2000, I remember thinking, any ethnicity that you can think of are here. I was excited to learn about new cultures. At the parent orientation event, my mom and I were shocked, to say the very least, when the presenters told the whole auditorium of mostly white and international students that it is not safe to ride the Red Line, and don't go east of Michigan Avenue, north of 31st Street, south of 35th Street, or west of the Dan Ryan Expressway. My mom was just disgusted. The people on stage at orientation basically told a room full of newcomers to Chicago not to go to our neighborhoods because it was unsafe.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. My name is Austin Miles. I'm originally from Durham, North Carolina, and I'm new to Chicago, so about a few months now. So.
Remind me to give you the folded map film.
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to send
Yes,
it.
I shall. And I am reading Eva's story. I think about growing up in a predominantly white suburb of Chicago and watching local news and Chicago-based TV channels. The crime reporting is so heavily focused on the South Side that I feel like the fear of these neighborhoods just slowly worms its way into your brain. I started a job in Inglewood at a nonprofit at Kennedy King College when I was 21 years old. Even though I worked there in the middle of the day, my family, my friends, and even my peers were like, be careful and don't wear anything flashy. For a while, I have to admit, I was scared to get on the CTA train, and the warnings made me second-guess my decision to take this job. But after taking the train for just 1 week, it felt like business as usual. Obviously, nothing was happening. It was just regular living and going to work. Also, the people of Inglewood were way friendlier than the people in my North Side neighborhood. After a while, the warnings started to annoy me. I wanted to say something like, when's the last time you were there? Or person who's warning me about this neighborhood you've probably never even been to.
Thank you for giving it that emphasis.
Hi, I'm Sanjana. I'm actually from the suburbs, but I just moved to the city a few weeks ago.
I gotta get you to folder map film.
I would love that. Okay, so I'm reading Jerry's story. I distinctly remember going to Inglewood on the bus for the first time. I had a strong sense that I was this white dude on this bus of all black people. I had to get off the bus and stand at an intersection waiting for the next bus. You're not so worried about something happening to you on a bus, but a white dude standing at an intersection? I remember being like, okay, when they say stuff happens, this is where it goes down. This is it. This is where it happens. Text mama and tell her you love her. But it turns out it's really uneventful. Eventually, I realized that the black people on the bus weren't focused on me. They don't care. Part of whiteness seems to be that you think everyone gives a damn. Like you think when you're in these spaces, black folks can't help but be like, oh, who is this guy? I wonder why he's here. But black people have their own lives. They don't care why you're there. And they certainly don't care about you waiting for a bus. They don't care about you sitting on a bus. Seriously, you could write a Dr. Seuss book about this.
Okay, actress. Okay. Thank you. Oh my goodness.
So a brief interruption to say, a brief interruption to say that was the boring sociology graduate student.
Right, she didn't want to interview Jerry. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, I'm gonna let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Joey D. I'm actually the guy in the video. I'm the piano tuner. And
I was trying not to get so excited.
That's all good. And I brought my bag of tools in case any shit goes down. Just so we're, it's all good.
But Joey, how did it feel? You got to hear people respond to your story. I don't think you've ever heard it in this kind of space before.
Yeah. No, I know. I look at myself on camera 5 years ago, and I'm like, oh Jesus.
No.
Not that there's much change. Well, my facial hair is a lot more salty than it is peppery, than it was 5 years ago.
That's
anyway,
true. That's
anyhow,
true.
But
how did it feel? Though?
It was. I was kind of like. I felt pretty good, honestly. I don't really watch myself on camera ever.
I know.
Talk or anything that much.
But your story, it was
but it's
touching.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it still touches me to this day because I had a recent client even 2 months ago in Chatham, just say I can't get anybody else to come down here.
Well, we need to give you a pack of books so you can give them to your clients and say, you know what, I'm part of a
She's
project.
like, you need to read. You need to read, dude.
Let's let you read. Okay,
it's all good.
We'll do our little reunion later.
It's all good. Thank you good to see you all again. I'm reading Tom's story. When I was a kid, we mostly went to places on the north side. I remember the general ominous feeling as we would drive towards Comiskey Park on the south side for a Sox game. The comments about the neighborhood got bad. I remember being like, oh my God, where are we going? As a child, I'm like, okay, I got to keep my shit together while we're in this place. And so we'd park somewhere and just sort of rush in this little group to the park. We were probably holding hands, at least while I was young. all huddled together in a defensive little pack, rushing to safety. I remember we were going to the Museum of Science and Industry, and we got off the interstate going west instead of east towards the museum. We ended up in some South Side neighborhood instead of the museum campus. We saw only black people as we drove through the neighborhood. And someone in the car said, "Lock your doors. Are the doors locked on the car? Avoid making eye contact."
Thank you,
That's it.
That's deep. We have a storyteller reading another storyteller. Thank you for being a volunteer, Joey. Yes.
Okay. This is a little too tall for me, so I'm just going to hold it. My name is Helena Rodriguez. I was actually born here in Illinois, but I grew up in Tampa, Florida, so this is the first time that I'm living in Chicago. I just moved a couple weeks ago, so.
All these new, you know what, now I got to get you, I need to have a list at this point. Okay, that's what I'm going to do.
I found Leslie's story particularly moving. When I got to Concordia University, Chicago in 2012, I was like, oh my goodness, I'm here. I'm in college. This is unreal to me. At college orientation, I mingled with a group of other Latinx students from the North Side. We had never met. As soon as I said that I grew up in Humboldt Park and that I live now in Cicero, I was categorized as an outsider, as a dangerous person from, quote, the hood. I didn't know this at the time, but my address told people how they should talk to me, about me, and at me. Another layer is to add on if you talk about what schools you come from. I was looked at like a wild child from coming from Chicago public schools instead of a private or charter school. They were so surprised to learn that I had aced my math placement because it was complicated what they thought they knew about CPS and the West Side. I just want to ask people, do you really want to know about me, or do you just want to confirm what you've been told about people like me? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, my name is Roy, and I am also new to Chicago.
Is it a class? I love it. I love it.
So actually, I went to Northwestern, and I've been in Evanston for 4 years, but I just moved to Uptown to Buena Park.
Oh, good for you. It's to get a little, little diversity in Uptown. Did they tell you that at Northwestern?
I mean, I think they kind of avoided telling us, about Chicago, or like a lot of people at Northwestern just stay in Evanston.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I love Uptown. And so this is Zachary's story. I'm half Mexican and half Irish. And when I was in high school, a friend of mine was mocked all the time for living in Roseland, a majority black community on the far south side. I learned to be cautious about sharing where I was from. Morgan Park, a mostly black South Side community. I wouldn't talk about it if I could avoid it. If I had to answer, I said I was from Beverly, which is right by Morgan Park and not considered a bad place to be from. That changed as I grew older. I would deliberately add, that's the South Side. I was at that point trying to advocate for not generalizing people from there. Calling places trash and all the other warnings people toss out about places like where I grew up hurts the places because it deters other people from going there and from spending their money there, and hurts the people who live there, who are dehumanized because these warnings and stuff deter us from seeing that real people actually live in these communities. That might be the most important part.
Thank you so much. Well, this is the part where we open it up for you all to share what's on your heart and mind. Not only have we been talking at you for a while, but you have listened to our amazing volunteers read their stories, read the storyteller's stories. So just want to offer you an opportunity to share what you're thinking. Also, ask questions about the project or Chicago, whatever. But feel free to come to the mic, or if you feel like you can talk loud enough, then stand up and do it.
I think the videographers would be upset if we didn't make them use a microphone.
True, because we are recording this. It will be probably on my social media, so we want to make sure people hear what you say. So if you don't mind, come to the mic. But yeah, we'll sit here and wait till someone has a thought or a question that they want to share, because I know it takes a little while for it to process. But she's a teacher. I used to be a teaching artist. We don't mind waiting.
We'll just stare at you until you decide to participate.
Or
no
we
pressure.
can talk to Joey until somebody else.
Joey could talk all night for us. I will also say, Tonika, this is yet another one. I mean, they just keep getting better. The excerpt readers, it's like,
I know.
They have some theater background.
Talented excerpt readers.
I'm also a little short, so I'll be doing this. Hi, great to see both of you. I wanted to share kind of my experiences. I'm new to Chicago, only about like 2 months in.
Y'all need to create a little group. I'm telling you.
I think they might be just saying that because you promised a film to them. That's what I'm thinking.
But I have a really specific memory that kind of stuck with me back when I was staying in North Carolina for the summer with my mom. And I had gotten a babysitting gig through Facebook and just to make some extra cash for rent and tuition. And the lady I was babysitting for was a nurse, and her husband was a brain surgeon. And I had thrown out, like, I don't know where I'm going to live in a month. And she was like, oh, well, I have a brother who's living in Chicago and does work out there. Send me a list of neighborhoods that you're interested in, and I can kind of see what's affordable, what has good community, what's, like, generally good. And so me not knowing anything about Chicago, I kind of just pulled out a few names that I had heard of. I heard of Cicero, the Loop, you know. A lot of the north side I'd come to learn later is what I was familiar with. And then there was Berwyn. And so this isn't a story specifically about the south side, it's more with the west side. And the response I got from this brother was, all of the other ones are great. Do not move to Berwyn. It's dangerous, especially for a young woman like yourself. And never got an explanation of why.
Wow.
And come to find out with the help of my cohort contextualizing a lot of this stuff, I figured out why. Wow. And so I think an important aspect of this is the kind of scapegoat of women's safety and this kind of gender lens of, oh, don't go to this racialized area because you're a young woman. It's dangerous for you, as if any other space is going to be dangerous than any other space for a woman being like laid out at night, whatever. So that's my experience. And so I had found the Chicago History podcast that you and Dr. Krysan had done together, and it had sparked my interest in going and learning about everything that had happened. And I guess my question for both of you is, creating these ongoing dialogues that'll take place outside of just this immediate space are really important. But do you also know of any policy that's happening right now that can kind of work to reverse some of this damage?
Oh, we got a real good smart question.
Yeah, well, she's a graduate student.
She's there, Honestly, I can't say that I can think of one. No, not that explicitly targets what we're getting at. And I think the reason this book was so important for us to be able to do is because policy and laws haven't gotten us here. And so that's important, and I'm not saying I don't care about it. However, I wanted us to be able to do what policy can't do, which is to continue to personalize it and have it be a conversation, because it really does impact neighborhoods in ways that I think reveal itself when we have space to talk about it. So I firmly believe that these kind of conversations with amazing people like you, who might create the policy one day that could help. But you have to be exposed to these kinds of conversations and the nuances and why policy hasn't been effective. And I think that it hasn't been because it hasn't been personalized enough. You know, you can't create systemic change when the people who are change makers think a certain way. And so you really have to be clear and aware of your own biases, and I hope that our book provides a way for policymakers to consider all of those things. I'll give you an example. I didn't think about why a group of medical students would want me to come talk to their class, or an educator would want me to come talk to the class about medical students or health. And when I first did that, it made sense to me afterwards, because I was like, oh, my projects, and even now this book is really elevating the fact that you have biases, and you take those biases with you to whatever service you're delivering. And in an industry like medicine, health, social work, it is so important to be aware of those kind of biases, because you do bring that to the services that you deliver. So I just hope I'm not really answering your question, but my hope is that this book can help remind people maybe why we need better policy and why it hasn't been as effective to disrupt all of this.
Yeah, I would say to continue not answering your question. I think what I like about the book is it's accessible, and what I feel like it does, it has people from all walks of life, Joey included, who have figured out ways within their professions, within their practices, within whatever as a parent, as a college admissions director, whatever, to disrupt this narrative. And that giving these talks to all different audiences, medical doctors, real estate agents, college students, all those, we're planting the seeds of people who will carry that into their work and see the ways that they can shift within their work what they're doing. So it's an indirect policy implication. Right. It's planting seeds, it's growing a movement, it's giving people the language to talk about this, which I think is another thing that is sorely lacking. Having a conversation that surfaces the damage with this simple, once you have started to pay attention to every time you hear and see someone saying the essence of this, which is don't go over there, that's not a good neighborhood. Somebody comes to you and says, where should I move? And it's like, yeah, well, these good neighborhoods are over here and the bad neighborhoods over here. You're going to realize it's everywhere. Mm-hmm. And by reading these reflections and thinking about it, I want people to say, wait a minute, let's interrupt that language. I'm not telling you to go move there. I'm just saying stop saying these things. Mm-hmm. Appreciate the places you're talking about. People live there.
Yeah. And I think Zachary's story is, his complete story would be a great one for, students studying policy to read, because, this is a casual thing people say, but it has actual economic community development impacts. And so I think that should be a story people who are interested in making change should read. Thank you for that thoughtful question.
Thank you so much. That makes a ton of sense.
You didn't tell us your name and where you're from. We need to do a little
Carolina,
lift up here.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I am an incoming first year in the PhD program with UIC. I've got my cohort members over there.
Oh wait, you didn't tell me you brought.
I brought the whole gang.
Oh my gosh.
We're showing out.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I'm
Now
Olivia, and working for IRPP, so Institute of Research on Race and Public Policy, which is why I was looking for those intersections. Yeah. Thank you both so much.
Thank you for that question.
Shout out to UIC Sociology. Yay.
Yeah. Hi. My name is Grace. I am also a graduate student, but at SAIC here with my cohort. And I wanted to, hi. Yeah, I wanted to mention and sort of ask a little question based off of this. My dad is a real estate appraiser on the South Side, and he services a lot of the neighborhoods that you're talking about. I live in Oak Lawn, right near Beverly. We're in the suburbs. And
That's the neighborhood I was told to not go to, Oak Lawn, when I was
yeah. Unfortunate, real unfortunate. I like there are a lot of places like I remember being like in my dad's car or in somebody's house while he's like measuring their place or whatever, and everyone was always so nice to me, and it was like they weren't really expecting to be treated with professionalism in a lot of cases. And that was really striking to me in terms of like just, and seeing like just normal people like on their porches was really, really impactful. But in terms of like, now that I'm an adult, there, like as a little disabled white woman, there are places where my dad can go, but I can't go. And so it's like, how do you deal interpersonally with like knowing in your, like, that people are people and every place is in some way unsafe, but also like trying to quell that fear?
No, I really love your question, and thank you for sharing that about that very unique experience you have with your father that's an appraiser. That relates to a current project I'm doing, but maybe we talk to him. But your question, I had something that I wanted to say specifically to how thoughtful it was, but just to give you an example, I've been kind of testing out how to deal with what you asked when people talk about, in this socio-political climate, the perception of Chicago. And since I do a lot of speaking engagements that include people who are not from Chicago, sometimes conferences, I bump up against this crazy narrative that people think Chicago is so dangerous, which we're seeing now in the news, and how politicized that is, but also how inaccurate it is, because people don't think of New York City in that same exact way. And so I've often found myself having conversations when I am confronted with someone who might ask, is it dangerous, or I've heard this, or I've heard that. I just try to point out or help uplift other considerations. One, how it might be racialized, or question where did you get the information, or why do you think that? And oftentimes I've had the most impact, just doing a little comparison to New York, just being like, don't you find it interesting that no one thinks that way of New York, and it's bigger, has more people, and it does actually have violence. So just providing threads that will allow people to consider other ways of thinking, or considering even the source that they got it from. So I also wanted, and I think we both wanted this book to be a way for people to push back in moments where they're confronted with someone saying something horrible about a neighborhood, but more importantly, reminding people what Zachary said, that you're not talking about a neighborhood, you're talking about people. And sometimes I think we all know you're using that, like Zachary said, as a scapegoat. You're talking about people, not a neighborhood, and you're not even accurate in some of the things that you're saying. But I know you wanted to get in there.
Well, no, I was just going to build out the thing that we've done this a little bit before, so she knows what I'm going to say.
I saw her, doing it all the time.
No, I think that the thing that I wanted to say about that is that I think in today's world, and I've studied racial attitudes for a long time, people have learned you're not supposed to stereotype people. right? You're not supposed to say that. That's not polite to say things where you're stereotyping categories of people. It's a psychological thing we do to get on with life. It's a cognitive process, blah, 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 blah. But you're not supposed to stereotype people. And we know all the bad things that come from that. But I think what this book really surfaces for me is that the power and the impact of stereotyping places. Because we're really just stereotyping people, but it's now an approved, sanctioned, okay way. It's okay to call a neighborhood bad, even if the neighborhoods that you're calling bad are always filled with black people that you're not supposed to stereotype, or Latinx people that you're not supposed to stereotype. So it's sort of a semantic difference at some level, because the consequences are very personal, right? And I think Leslie's story, I was moved that you were moved, wherever our storyteller is who told Leslie's story. That was the other one that we were bawling at and wanted to just give her a hug. So touching, because she brought to the surface for me a sociologist focused on numbers and thinking about the inequality and the unfairness, my entire career studying the unfairness of the inequality that is borne out because of segregation. So I'm looking at the numbers and the access to grocery stores, all the hard facts and numbers. And Leslie's story really reminded us the impact on a person. Like, what kind of world is this that when you say where you're from, people are less curious about you? I mean, that just ripped my heart out on the Zoom camera floor, because to me that just exemplified my point that stereotyping a neighborhood is stereotyping a person, and it has deeply personal impacts.
And then I just remembered the other thing I wanted to say. And what's her name again? Grace. Now, this is the part where we get real and honest, and this is what art can do, make you vulnerable. So what I've also had to learn to do, not just about Don't Go, but just my body of work. I talk to different groups of people. Sometimes it's predominantly white. Sometimes it's, predominantly black, everything in between. And in order for me to have these kind of conversations and accept the fact that people are just people, I had to also realize that segregation worked. It did its big one. It did its thing. It actually worked. We're separated. We live in different communities. We have stereotypes about each other, and it's perpetuated because we live so separately. I had to really accept that that was the truth of the situation in order for me to openly have honest conversations with someone who's never lived anywhere near a black person. That's just the truth of what it is. It worked. And so in order to have a productive conversation and not get pissed off, answering what some other black person might get tired of confronting certain questions about your neighborhood or whatever, because I create work about this, I have a lower expectation of people being aware of all of the things that I talk about in my work. And so I had to just develop my own truth about segregation and how it impacts all of us in order for me to position myself to create space for others to do the same. So I don't get upset at a question that might offend someone else, like, oh, is your neighborhood bad? I don't anymore because I know that they don't know, or they haven't had practice in even asking that question. And that's kind of the reason that we wanted to have this book, is because all of this is messy. And if you watch the Folded Map, Map Twin interviews, which is an hour long, the reason I call it social justice reality TV is because, it's a lot of cute moments in the film, but in the video, but it's a lot of messiness. People saying some offensive stuff, answering questions. But the thing that I wanted people to take away from it is that you're witnessing people who are committed to listening, who are committed to learning how to get corrected. You're witnessing people fumbling and figuring it out. And so that's what I've had to open up my heart to be able to do. And that's hard, but I hope that our work and my projects allow people, just a glimpse of, when you do that, what it can offer on the other side. So, long answer, but thank you so much, Grace, for that amazing question.
My name is Say Fry, and I lived in Mississippi most of my life. For the first 24 years of my life, lived in Alabama for about a year and a half, and then I've been in Chicago. But, before I moved to Chicago, I had lived in Jackson, and Jackson actually has a higher crime rate per capita, violent crime and homicide rate per capita, than Chicago does. But when I wanted to move to Chicago, all my friends and family from Jackson were, oh my God, it's a war zone, it's a crime zone, you're gonna be shot in your bed, and like so dramatic about it. And I even had this moment before I moved here, like, wait, like, is it gonna be dangerous? Like, do I need to be scared? And then I moved here anyway, and I love it. But a lot of the negativity I got, even since I moved here, the people I've met who have also moved here from other places who aren't lifelong Chicagoers or haven't spent the majority of their life in Chicago, it seems a lot of the kind of negative press and the danger mania is kind of coming from these outside perspectives of people who haven't been to Chicago or lived in Chicago, and it's kind of easy to sensationalize, I feel like, especially with like TV news and social media and stuff. And kind of on the topic you were saying, like, we know it's like you're not supposed to stereotype people as much anymore, but people still stereotype places. I'm from Mississippi, and there's a lot of, really valid, like, negative things to say about Mississippi, but there's also a lot of people who have never been to Mississippi, don't care about Mississippi, who just, it's an easy target, and they want to, talk shit about something and hate something. And so my question is sort of, and I know, a lot of people who kind of hate on Mississippi have never been there and don't care to go there and don't care to learn. It's just an easy target, and I feel like Chicago is similarly kind of an easy target for outsiders to sensationalize and pick on. So my question is, have y'all noticed in y'all's work, do you think more of the fear is, like, if people, just lived here and didn't travel to other neighborhoods, but they weren't getting this outside pressure, or they weren't hearing all these things from outside sources about how dangerous Chicago is, do you think they would still feel like other parts of Chicago were as dangerous, or do you think it's a lot of outside people who haven't been to Chicago and don't have any good faith reason to care about Chicago who are giving it more of a negative perception and making it sound like these areas are so crime-ridden because it's just fun for them to talk about and they have no real stake in it? Does that make sense?
No, it does. Did you?
I was just going to say it's both. But.
Yeah, it's both. But again, that's when I started to develop my New York analogy. Because of course crime happens in New York, but I've definitely been to places in New York where, when I've told people after the fact, like, oh, but the perception isn't there. And I wasn't warned to not go there, And so to that point, it is both, but I just urge people to even, like, follow their curiosity to figure out or to identify maybe why. Why is Chicago's violence such the center of everything? And so since I went to school for journalism, that would be the question that we would get taught to chase. Like, who benefits from the, slandering, if you will, of Chicago, if that is your question? Because it is, very, very different. So I would say both before I meander into a whole nother conspiracy theory. But yeah.
Kind of the slandering of just, like, if it's people, within the city that are, like, keeping themselves apart, or if it's other people, or if they're, like, kind of letting, other forces kind of keep them apart. I'm sure it is both, but like, if the outside pressures maybe make it worse, like seeing all this stuff on the news, or like the president talking about it's a war zone, or like, people love to say like Chirac and stuff like that, and like you see it all over social media, but it's a lot of
Well, I will tell you this. I started Folded Map as a project in 2016, started working on it. And that was the presidential election year. And the reason that I started the project is because of what you're saying. I was like, okay, this reputation about Chicago is becoming international. And that just blew my mind. As a Chicagoan, I had never seen Chicago being talked about on this international scale in such a negative way. I was just used to, as a Chicagoan, hearing about or having to defend the south side of Chicago or the west side of Chicago. But then in 2016, 2017, I started having my white friends tell me that they had to defend Chicago because people were asking them, oh, do you have to dodge bullets? And I said, okay, now if the white people from Chicago get this is crazy. This is like, they really believe this. So I think media does play a very huge role, which is why you'll notice a lot of my projects have media coverage, because media is a part of my artistic practice. That is the space in which I felt my neighborhood was getting bullied in, and that was the space I wanted to interrupt. Media plays a huge role. Media is actually the reason that I chose to not become a photojournalist like my whole heart wanted to be in high school, because when I majored in journalism and photography at Columbia College and we were, having internships, I quickly learned that, as a new photojournalist, I'm going to be the one that gets sent out to neighborhoods to report crime. And I didn't want to be sent to my neighborhood that I grew up in to report on stuff that I wasn't exposed to and didn't want to be in that specific way. So the media definitely plays a huge role, because in journalism in the early 2000s, late 90s, you were definitely taught in class, if it bleeds, it leads. Like, that's not a joke. It was for real. And that, and getting taught that is what let me know, okay, I actually don't want to be a photojournalist. So yeah, the media plays a huge role.
So I'm going to add on a quick thing. The international theme of that, I was fortunate to spend a couple months in Sweden in the spring, and I did this presentation, and I, at the very last second, said, oh, what the heck, let me just ask. I asked a room full of Swedes, have you ever been told that the south side of Chicago is dangerous or that you shouldn't go there? And half of them raised their hand. So yes, it's international. But then on the flip side, my quick both answer is that when you read the book, many of these stories are people who are older, who have, way before 2016, way before the national spotlight was turned on Chicago, were raised in that context of being told and not being taken to the south side. So that's why I say it's both. It's not that wasn't a response to the external media environment telling them the south side. That was, I lived there before, I heard this, I did this, and don't go there. I mean, Tom's story of being this little kid racing to the baseball field, it goes way back for many people, yeah. and our storytellers are a range of ages.
Yeah, I mean, and to answer it simply, I mean, it's just historic racism. So it just morphed into a whole bunch of different ways to the point that now it's just disguised as safety. But really, it's rooted in its racism. Because in the 1950s and 60s, when black people were moving into neighborhoods that they were redlined into and white people were moving out, even those white residents, some of them had to get tricked to move out. They had to get told, oh, it's going to be bad. Black people are moving in. Your housing value is going to drop. It's going to get dangerous. First of all, how you even know? This has never happened in this city before. Black people moving into this neighborhood. What are you referring to? How do you even know? So it's fear. It's fear, and it's rooted in racism. So I think if you know that, then it'll be easier for you to identify when it's morphing into something newer and different.
Thank you all.
Thank you. So I think we have time for one last question, because I know Kim is going to be like, all right.
Okay, I'll try to make this fast. My name is Marie. I'm from San Antonio, Texas originally, and I just moved here Same time as Olivia,
What is
actually.
the deal? What's
yeah,
the
I
deal?
came
This
with
the
them.
new to Chicago crew. I love this.
So I actually came from a side of town in San Antonio that was the don't go to that side of town of San Antonio. So when I came to Chicago, everybody was like, oh, call it naivety, whatever. I was like, oh, I'm going to go to all these places even if people tell me not to go there because I know exactly what I want in my neighborhood. I want to be in a community of color. Like, I've grown up in a community of color. I've lived there my whole life. I want to be in another community of color. And I love my neighborhood. It's exactly what I wanted. But I was looking at this from an urban planning perspective. I'm sorry if this is a very, very academic question to a not research-based thing, as y'all said. But I love the idea of, like, yes, she is problematic, but Jane Jacobs' idea of community within urban planning. And it's something that I noticed within your stories is talking about the community within the South Side and the West Side. And I live on the Southwest Side, and I see that a lot, where even though there are urban planning issues within the Southwest Side due to racism and the way in which like businesses are put out there, the community itself has come together in such a beautiful way that like an urban planner's like dream is the way that the communities come together. But urban planners and policymakers don't see that because they don't care to see that because they are communities of color. So how do we get those communities to understand that their community and the way in which they come out for each other and the way in which like somebody, I know one of the stories that said like kids play in the street is so important to those communities and is necessary for the rest of Chicago to flourish and like have an amazing time. Like how do we get those communities to be able to advocate for themselves in urban planning about how good their community is even with the adversity they face?
I love that question because, first of all, the community doesn't need to advocate for themselves. The urban planning community needs to understand that the solutions are within, that the people who live it have the solutions, which is why I always suggest people watch the Folded Map film. Because it was important, because I include the origin of my project in that film. Because I want people to know this didn't come from the mind of an urban planner in a traditional sense. This came from the mind and observations of a little black girl on her commute from her black neighborhood to her predominantly white, to her high school in a predominantly white neighborhood. And so it was important for me to include that origin story so people who are in those sectors could understand that the solutions exist and the solutions are in these neighborhoods. And out of all of the reports that have been done, out of all of the reports, and as much as Chicagoans love our map, the fact that my project was the one that helped people visualize it in a way that was using Chicago's grid map was something that some people were just shocked, like, oh my God, it's so simple, it's so beautiful, trust me, I am not the only one who's ever thought about this in my community. I'm the only one that actually did the project, but this was this is every day for us in our communities that have had to deal with disinvestment. So navigating it, coming up with solutions on how to make your neighborhood better, that's a common everyday thing. And so I think it would be best for those sectors, and I hope that my work and my project will elevate the knowledge and the brilliance that exists in these neighborhoods to those sectors to understand that, yeah, a lot of great work can be done together if you just recognize that these solutions and these thoughtful responses to cultivating community exist already. And we just need to be listened to as opposed to advocated for. Like, we just need to be listened to and to bridge the divides. And so that's why I really enjoy that my project has introduced to people in those sectors, the community of Inglewood, because my work is the product of many partnerships and me observing organizations in my neighborhood, being a part of organizations in my neighborhood, helping co-found some that aim to disrupt all of these issues. So I would suggest you give them Folded Map film to anyone that you want to talk to about this issue, because it is true that it does need to be a bridge divide.
And there's a great storyteller in the book that was a graduate student in urban planning, Jermaine, talks about
Oh,
exactly
that's right,
that,
Jermaine. Yes.
that process.
Yeah. Thank you for that. I was I can't remember one. Okay, she said we can do one more. Oh yes, we'll close out with this. But please know you can look. Let me do this. Please know, yes, you can. Oh, our Instagrams aren't up there. But anyway, we are on Instagram. I live on Instagram. Tonika J, and Maria Krysan. So if you have questions and you want to hit us up, definitely do it there, or you can be more formal and email us. But
Oh, it's not. Look at
I
that.
know
We didn't put it
I know
anywhere.
we didn't put it
Darn
there. But yes, we'll close with your question. No pressure.
No, it usually ends up this way. Also, by the way, you guys did put your Instagrams on there on one of the slides. I don't know which one, but it's on there.
I'm going to walk through
I know. While you ask the question.
My name's Darius. I'm also a grad student at SAIC with my cohort, including Grace and all those lovely people.
And Adrian.
I am from Birmingham, Alabama, which context for the people in relation to this conversation, top 10 blackest cities in the nation and also top 5 for gun violence. And even like when I was moving up here, my mom was like, "Are you moving to the South Side?" And I'm like, "No, Mom, I'm not moving to the South Side. I'm moving to Little Village." Obviously, duh.
Which is the South Side.
Huge difference.
But oh, okay.
Right. But we're talking a lot about how the media's portrayal of Chicago is a lot of the reason that people from outside of Chicago and even within Chicago have come to this conclusion that Chicago's this incredibly dangerous place, and like specifically the South Side is. And a lot of that media is like explicit, like historical racism, yellow, like papering, like sensationalization. But a lot of it is just like art that people within Chicago who have come from those communities, who have like quote unquote made it out of those communities, are making. The most obvious example that comes to my mind is The Chi, like that. The show is like multiple seasons long, running, and it's made by Black people, presumably for Black people, even though it's on syndicated television. So salt grains. But how do you reconcile the art that you are making, trying to counter these narratives, with the art that Black people from Chicago are making to like process and heal from their genuine experiences of violence? Because like I could like even talk about the violence that I've never experienced it in my personal life, but I've definitely been adjacent to it from 8 years old to like a week ago. So like how do you navigate that space of like, this is a stereotype, but also all stereotypes come from this kernel. They don't just pop up out of nowhere unless the CIA is involved, but that's a different story.
No, I appreciate that. And one, to answer your question on a few different levels, one, Lena Waithe, love her. I mean, but when it comes to the media, especially since I went to school for journalism, that's still entertainment. It's entertainment. And so if you look at it, if you attempt to be an educated viewer and see that it's entertainment, then you can kind of better understand certain categories, what you'll see, the same repetitive kind of the tropes and characters that exist. And that's just what it is. That's, to me, entertainment. But in regards to, I'll even just use my neighborhood, Inglewood, for example. This is the neighborhood that younger generations associate with Chief Keef. That's just a fact. That's what it is. That's the neighborhood he's from. But knowing that your reality is not the only reality in a neighborhood. there are people from my neighborhood that have experienced or been touched by gun violence. That is not my experience, and that does not negate what they went through, but it's to help people understand that that it is not a monolith at all, and to remind people of that truth. For the longest time, people who thought a certain way about my neighborhood would be surprised that I was from my neighborhood. So that let me know who you were exposed to or what you think people from my neighborhood lives are like. And so them meeting me challenged that. But the truth of the matter is, it's a lot of Tonikas, it's a lot of artists, it's a lot of creatives in neighborhoods like that, which is why we all started Inglewood Arts Collective. It's 10 of us artists who are from Inglewood that unfortunately didn't get to meet in Inglewood when we were younger because of disinvestment. We all met outside of our own neighborhood, but we exist. And so really to just remind people that, you know, you just can't think that way of an entire location or neighborhood. There are hot spots of violence in Greater Inglewood, but I have a problem with people thinking that it's the entire neighborhood. That's the problem. And then also not knowing that the neighborhood is over 6 square miles. And oftentimes when people think, oh, it's so violent, well, it can't be over the entire 6 square miles, you know? So I definitely, in sharing my work, have had to balance the fact that, you know, some people are touched by gun violence. But even when I was doing community work and talking to police officers, doing community work with them, I even got educated on how wildly miseducated people are about crime statistics. They were the ones to tell us in the community that the gun violence that we hear of, majority of that is interpersonal. It's not even gang violence. It's gang violence or gang-associated gun violence is like such a small percentage of gun violence. Gun violence is really interpersonal. So the issue is not gangs, it's our gun laws. But people, the way they interpret or are taught this type of information is really horribly inaccurate. And so I just hope that my projects enable people to learn how to challenge and question and just not, you know, just believe stereotypes in its totality, because that is what we have to kind of fight against, because it's just not accurate or factual. Did you want to add anything out of my little soapbox? But yeah, but it's a great question that I'm glad you brought it up, because I often, little secret, I often had to tell, you know, the Black community, we got to stop talking about our neighborhood the way that we do, because the way that we talk about it is so nuanced that other people don't understand. We wear it as a badge of honor. You don't know where I'm from. You know, they forget. But other people don't know how to interpret that nuance, and they just take it for what it is, thinking, oh, okay, well, she's from Inglewood. She said it was bad because of, you know. No, we didn't mean it that way. So, yeah, but it's just something that there is no one direct answer to. You know, we just have to continually challenge people's stereotyping in general, and then also hopefully have ways for people to get more educated about facts and statistics. And my hope is really for people to understand all the ways in which crime statistics can be skewed. But I don't know, maybe we got to do a class on that. But thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Thank you all so much for this group conversation. So since we went overtime on the actual amazing conversation that we had with you all, we're not going to have as much time for the book signing because, yeah, we're going to have to get out of here shortly. So I just wanted to say thank you again. Follow us on social media or email us at foldedmapchicago@gmail.com. Definitely get the book, the curriculum, add your sticker to the exhibit at the Buddy Store, okay? And thank you to Kim and the Buddy Store for hosting all of this. And we will see you outside to sign some books. Thank you.